Hello. Good morning. Good afternoon. Welcome to our webinar. We're going to let attendees roll in for just a minute. I see the numbers ticking up. So excited to be with you this Wednesday and be with Maddy.
Welcome, welcome. Come on in.
Yeah.
Happy Wednesday, everyone.
Happy Wednesday. We'll give it a minute, I think, until we see the numbers sort of level off, and then we can jump into our intros. But yeah, I hope everyone has their coffee or tea. I don't know, Maddy, do you have some water with you?
I have been, folks, drinking a gallon of water a day. I highly recommend it. It is a new initiative. Yes, I have my water and tea ready. I'm excited for this next hour. Feel free to bring some chats in. We'll be checking.
Go ahead and drop your questions in the Q&A. We're going to get to as many as possible. Yeah, I say we kick it off. Welcome. I'm Isabel. I'm a lead relationship manager here at XYPN, and I've been here for the past 2 years working under Maddy, and so I am very thrilled to welcome her as today's guest. You may have seen her hosting these in the past, but now she's in the hot seat because she has been here since the beginning, has had hundreds of conversations with members. And so we, when it came to the subject of how to start your successful firm, she was the choice. It was kind of a no-brainer here. So very excited to put her in the hot seat. Drop questions in Q&A. We did have a number of them submitted beforehand, but we want to get to them as many as possible. I'll let Maddy introduce herself in just a minute, but I do want to do a quick housekeeping and plug for next month's webinar. We're going to be talking about tech solutions in your firm, which is a very fun one. And we have our very own product owner, Taylor Deerdorf, on that one. So I'm looking forward to interviewing her December 2nd. Mark your calendars for that. But let's focus on Maddy and what it takes to launch, run, and grow a successful family firm and the lessons that we've all learned over the past couple of years. Maddy, give yourself an introduction.
Thank you, Isabel. I so appreciate it. And Isabel, I hope you too chime in on this conversation. I was really excited as we prepped for this call. Isabel too is an expert in this space. She's worked with hundreds of advisors over her years. But I'm Maddy. Hi, everyone. Nice to see you virtually. I wish I could be in person with you. But of course, this is always just a webinar style. I've been with the XYPN team since nearly day one. I joined May of 2014 after April 2014 launch of XY. So I was XY's first employee after Alan and Michael, and didn't have the opportunity of actually meeting them in person until about 4 or 5 months after we worked together. So I've been with the team. I was the director of getting shit done for a long time. And that position has evolved really over the years. Every time we have a new staff member join, I feel like my job shifts just a little bit. And now I'm the senior director of member success, as well as the host of XYPN Radio. So if any of you guys listen to the radio, you've probably heard my voice before. But I'm a dedicated XYPN Dream Team member. I really, really enjoy the position, both internally and externally at XYPN, helping the team as well as the members. But the purpose of me being on this call tonight or today is really to help provide some perspective as a lay woman in a lot of ways to this initiative of going out and starting your firm. I'm not going to pretend to be an executive business coach, but I will certainly speak to some anecdotal evidence I have, my experience working with advisors, what has and hasn't worked. And please feel free to bring more questions. I love addressing questions in live time, and just give me a little bit of grace because those questions I wouldn't have prepped for. So I will always make sure to give you the best answer I've got. And if I don't have it, I will make sure we go out and research it for you.
Beautiful. Thank you for that intro, Maddy. Like I said at the beginning of this call, I've had the pleasure of working under Maddy for the past 2 years, and she just speaks so eloquently about our members and who they are. I watched her yesterday give a presentation on why our members are badass to our new teammates. Yeah, let's dive in. The first one I have is, of course, a whammy. If you could just share one piece of advice or one lesson learned for launching or establishing a firm, what would it be?
I love this question because it is so broad. And really, I think it comes down to an answer I would give whether we were talking specifically in the space of launching a firm or just generally living your life. But I think kind of having your North Star clear is something really all advisors should take into account before they start their firm. And when I say North Star, what are the things that actually pull you up out of bed? Is it being a great manager? Is it being a great advisor? Is it being a great business owner? What are the things that you really strive to do in your day-to-day life? Making money can be one of your motivations. Building a strong business can be one of your motivations. But what really is the essence of why you exist, and why you're building your firm? If you're going to go out and build your firm, it's going to be quite hard. Pardon me, I've still got election folks calling me. It's going to be hard, and you will have days where you feel like you're just not certain that this is exactly what you want. And when you can go back to your North Stars, kind of helps you pull out of that. And I get as granular as saying, like, write things on post-it notes and put them in your mirrors in the morning. I have those written all around my house about how I want to be and who I want to be when I'm up and moving around. And so it's a general answer to a pretty broad question. But if you're going to do this, you've really got to know why you're doing it, and get really clear about it. Write a mission statement, write a vision statement, go above and beyond and making sure people know and at the heart why you are actively pursuing your goals.
Yeah. Oh, I love that answer. And something you recommended to me over the years is a genius chart of thinking about what you like to do, what you don't like to do, what you're good at and what you're bad at. So sit down and write all of those down and see what falls into that quadrant of what you're good at and what you really like to do. So I love that, the finding of the why, no matter how you get there. So
Yep.
important to find. Good. Well, that was a big one to kick off this hour, but very broad, but such a good piece of advice. Let's keep going. What are the biggest challenges you see for CPAs transitioning from traditional tax practices to RIAs?
Sure. I mean, making the switch is hard always, whether you're a career changer or you're in industry, even if you're a CPA or even if you're a financial planner currently. Going into the business owner role is a change. You no longer are just an employee, and you are going to have to wear a variety of different hats over your years, and days, quite honestly. I say this often, but you're going to be wearing different hats, meaning your chief compliance officer hat in the morning, your chief marketing officer hat in the afternoon, maybe your boss hat at 3 o'clock. You have to be ready to pivot from being a doer to running a business. And so whether you're a CPA or a general financial advisor or a dentist, if you're moving into this space as a business owner, you're going to have to look at the breadth of responsibility and accountabilities that are now on your plate. I do hear all the time CPAs loving getting into this space. It's a really natural transition. As you look at folks' tax returns, it's very easy to identify ways that they can save money. It's very easy to identify needs, financial needs that would warrant comprehensive financial planning. So that conversation for CPAs actually becomes really easy. It's that nice bridge into the conversation of, hey, I noticed X, Y, and Z on your tax return. Would be able to cover that in comprehensive planning. Here are my services I've just added. Now, I don't want to get into granular whether you have separate business entities or not for those two, but I do work with a large number of CPAs that come through XYPN's doors who feel like this is just the most natural extension of their work.
Mhm. Awesome. I love that. And I love what you mentioned about stepping more into the business owner role. And while you aren't a business owner at XYPN, you have transitioned from that doer role to that manager role. So what was the shift like for you?
Interesting. Good question. And then what Isabel's alluding to is that I was the director of getting shit done for years, meaning I was just doing, grinding, jumping when Alan and Michael said anything, boom, we got to get it done. We got to get it done. Now I'm the manager of the doers, and I have to keep camaraderie up. I have to keep motivation up. I have to make sure that I'm delegating. And I'm sure we'll get into more questions about management, but that shift is hard, and it's a hard pill to swallow because you're so used to looking at your task list and saying, okay, I'm going to get X, Y, and Z done. When all of a sudden things take longer because you're delegating them out, you have to train, you have to make sure quality is up to standards and then ship it yourself after someone else does the work. That becomes challenging. And I think that that's something that does trip up advisors is that they go from being doers to managers of themselves and their business. The weight of carrying a full-blown business on your shoulders is one that all advisors can carry. You can do this. I'm not at all trying to explain that this is an unachievable burden to carry, but it is a shift of mindset. And I really encourage folks to read about that shift. There's a lot of discussion just nowadays, and even in some of the older business books, about just the kind of time priorities and that you have to dedicate when you become a business owner versus just a doer. And even for me, as I became a manager, an active manager of how to prioritize both my time and the energy around what I focus on. I can no longer focus on just specific tasks. I have to look at the strategy behind it. I have to look at the deep 1, 2, 3, 5, 10-year vision of where we're going. And you as a business owner will have to do that too.
Yeah. So it is a big shift. And a lot of the folks that we see come into the network are coming from broker dealers, bigger corporate RIAs, or, other firms, or even different careers. So how do they become managers of themselves? I know that's that first step. And as an entrepreneur, you are wearing all of those hats. And so sometimes we have this idealized picture of just like, shaking hands, making moves. But when it gets down to it, you have to be actually like very hard on yourself.
You do have to be motivated. I mean, you have to remember your North Star. Why are you doing this? Is it to provide a legacy business to your children? Is it to be your own business owner? So many folks want to break into this space because they want the freedom of what it means to wake up when you want, wear what you want, serve who you want, how you want to serve them. There's so much freedom that comes with this avenue and direction, and it is so much fun to support all of you in that regard, because the shift you get when you go from an employee to a business owner is your confidence also goes like this. Boom. As you start taking on clients, as you begin to start servicing folks and building a business, your confidence goes up. Your ability to understand the need to prioritize differently starts shaping. You will likely come in and still be a doer as you launch your firm. But what I really love about this career, quite honestly, is it's a low barrier to entry. And I've talked about this before on the podcast, that, you don't have to go back to school necessarily full time to go and launch your business. When I was looking to break into this industry, I realized, oh wow, I just have to go get my CFP, and I don't need to go back to school full time to do it. I could stay employed. That's why we see so many wonderful career changers come in here, because it's such an awesome encore career for a lot of folks. But that shift of becoming an employee to a business owner is one that, read as much as you can about it. The E-Myth is a common book for a reason. There's all sorts of different books that help you and support this transition. But the freedom people get when they do it, it's scary, but so many of us have craved it and deserved it, quite frankly. And I think we all need to give ourselves a little bit more credit that when, at least, I see it every day with teammates, that when the pressure's high, people perform, and there's nothing like the pressure of having no income to make you want to hustle and make you want to work hard. So I really encourage you to be curious about how you handle that kind of pressure. Not everyone's cut out to be an entrepreneur. I'm a great number two. I could be a great number two the rest of my life. I don't know if I'll ever go out and break out on my own. That being said, so many advisors that come into XYPN have always dreamed about being business owners. But what I'm most complimented about is when advisors come in and look at us and say, I would have never been an entrepreneur had XY not existed. And that's where we can believe that the service we're offering is one of support to make this a doable transition for folks.
Yeah, love that. What are the other kind of career changers who you see come into this second phase of their career?
Mm. Good question. Mixed bag. I mean, we've got moms who are not in the workforce. We've got teachers. We've got engineers. We've got people head of product and development at Crayola. I throw that one out a lot, but he was just on the podcast. We have a lot of advisors. Former military is a great opportunity for folks to re-enter into the workforce. I truly believe in the power of the entrepreneur and what that can do for the world, and more advisors owning their own businesses and practices and employing people on their own terms. It's such a great career for folks. And what I hear most often is like, I just kept getting asked by my friends to help them. I hear that so often. And I go back to, how I got into this career. I was being asked on how to do it as well. And so I started blogging called, I started a blog called Balling on a Budget. And I started writing about keeping up with your finances on a small income. And all of a sudden people, started asking, well, okay, what do I do with this? And, thankfully I didn't get into the space of trying to be an advisor, but a lot of folks, even when they're not actively in the finance industry, felt a pull to it. Most people will say, I just always kind of felt like this was a space I wanted to get into. And what I, from my own experience, I didn't know it was a space 7 years ago. I had to go and seek it out and stumble upon this idea that being a certified financial planner is something that I could go do. I'm a CFP dropout. Thank you very much. I made that decision a few years ago. But it was eye-opening to realize I could enter into a new industry with such a low barrier. I mean, with an FPA discount to the CFP courses, I took out a loan, from a friend just to pay for that $3,000 or $4,000 course. But I didn't have to leave my job and I didn't have to go back to school full time. So career changers, this is such a beautiful place for you to come because there is education you can go and get. And then there's incredible continuing education you can go get, certifications, designations, CE, just the quality of CE that we have in the space will help you remain at the forefront of kind of your expertise.
Mm-hmm. And something that we see time and time again is people going after that CFP designation. It is definitely one of the gold standards in the industry, one that we hold up frequently. So, coming after the Series 65, it's kind of a natural next step. Someone jumped into the Q&A here. I am a career changer at 50, recently passed the Series 65 and currently taking CFP courses. I have no experience in the industry, something, again, we hear from career changers. So how do they get that experience?
Yeah, great question. My best answer is to go out and seek the experience. Even, and I haven't given this advice necessarily explicitly, but like you could go and shadow advisors. If you've got time on your hands where you could go take 3 or 4 days for 4 weeks and shadow what a real business owner advisor does, just to see the switch in context, to look at the calendar, to understand how many hours you might be working, what's spent on business development and marketing and this and that. You may want to flush out your understanding of what day-to-day looks like. And I'll get to this kind of the crux throughout other questions, but you really want to follow what's natural and follow what you're naturally good at. And I'll talk more on that in a bit, but the idea is if you're coming in out of industry, I would encourage you to either reach out to a lot of advisors. I would have, 50 conversations virtually in 50 days if you could, and pick their brains, paint the picture of what life may be like if you start your own business. But also don't be shy about, if owning your own business, taking on that risk, taking on that economic burden, and potential, of course. If you're not quite ready for that, go be the best number 2 you've got. Go learn ins and outs of what you love. You may find you want to be a chief compliance officer, and that could just be what you find out when you go and you live the life. Advisors all around the country are looking for good advisors to support them. And then if we ever get to questions today about who to be, who's your first hire, think about something as a director getting shit done. If your ability is to crank and to be a good contributor, that's a value add to advisors. And I wouldn't be shy about pitching what you're good at. And Isabel alluded to that genius chart, but it really is a matrix. What are you good at? What are you bad at? What do you love? And what do you hate? And through all of those conversations that you have with advisors, begin listing it out. Ooh, I hate and I'm bad at compliance. Ooh, I hate and I'm bad at investment management. But boy, put me in front of a client and I light up. Boy, put me, it comes naturally when I get to do a financial plan. That will begin to allow you to see where you really want to spend your time, because trust me, that quadrant of you're not good at and you don't like, if that is a majority of what running a business is, go be the best number 2 you can as a partner at another member firm and another advisor firm. But approach, if you're looking to get into another firm, approach it as a business. Don't just say, oh, I'm a financial planner, I can do financial planning. Recognize that individual who's a solopreneur at this point is wearing a bajillion hats and needs someone to understand that. And so approach it from the perspective of I'm coming in to help the business, not necessarily I'm coming in to be the best financial advisor, because at this point you don't have that experience.
Yeah.
Let us know if that answers your question.
Awesome advice. Someone else wanted to talk about kind of the experience, and they have 3 years in the back office. So would that translate to being a financial planner and entrepreneur?
Yeah, I mean, I'd have to know a little bit more about what you were doing. But again, I mean, I wouldn't jump into anything without investigating it first. And these calls are a great way to do it. A lot of, the podcasts are great stories of what advisors and what business owning is like. But yeah, if you've got 3 years of doing the back end work at a firm, that's super tangible experience. Then you know where on the quadrant those things fall. And you're able to say, okay, when I get into business, I'm going to really focus on increasing my skill set here and my technical expertise here, and I may really need to hire for X, Y, and Z. What you've done with those 3 years of experience is really gotten clear on what some of the tasks are that you may have to have. You also have enough context to decide how you may want to build your firm.
This person says 28, licensed and studying for the CFP.
Good. Get that CFP.
Yeah, so Maddy, as a CFP dropout and someone who's worked with hundreds and hundreds of CFPs over the years, what are your tips for studying? And if someone has been out of college for a number of years and is not used to the grind necessarily, how can they get help?
Yeah, you're talking to someone who hopes to never have to take another standardized test the rest of my life. That's just not my thing. That being said, the CFP coursework, remember, you're studying what you're going to be delivering. And if your goal is to be a client-facing advisor, you should be eating up that work. Yes, they don't mention the word student loans in the CFP curriculum at this point. Yes, if you're going to work with young people, you've got to go out and do other studying. But that CFP coursework, respect it. It's some of the, I mean, it's written and created for a reason. It's the gold standard in our industry. You must have technical knowledge to do this. You cannot outsource the technical knowledge. You have to have a deep understanding of what you are advising on. We have a number of great people in our network who are not CFPs, who have gotten technical experience through other means. So CFP is not the only way to do it. That being said, if you're starting out and you're a career changer, work towards that CFP. No doubt get your CFP. And I will preach that all the time, only because it's the foundation education. And if you're going to run a business on that foundation, you've got to have it. So get through it. It is not easy. But for someone who's going to be teaching it and delivering it to advisors, you should be sitting down with excitement for it, because you don't want to just get through it and forget about it. And you really want to be practicing it and thinking about how to apply it. If I were to do it again, I would be looking at what financial plans look like as I study, because what I did as a career changer, as I got into it, I wasn't yet in the industry. So when I was learning about Social Security integration, it was like, what the heck? I don't know how that's actually applied. So try to get some, knowledge that's applied, and see how advisors use it day to day. What does a Monte Carlo simulation, I hope I said that right, mean when delivering a financial plan? It's hard to put that context if you're not in the industry while you study. So complement that studying with podcasts, books, Michael Kitces reading, even emailing a couple advisors to just, hey, could you share me on a templated financial plan? Could you take out the names and show me what a financial plan may look like, so I could see what my work may translate into?
Mm-hmm. I would encourage people to jump into the VIP Facebook group that we have for podcast listeners. The people in there will share you on their financial plans. They'll share you on their agendas, their client meeting templates. It's very much we see the abundance mentality both in the VIP Facebook group and in the internal XYPN member forums, which is so heartwarming. Totally. Yeah. So let's talk startup costs, because we've had a number of questions about dollars and cents. So what are people looking at?
Sure. You guys are financial advisors at this point. You're attempting to be. So this is not a question I can answer with a cold number. I really encourage you to do an honest assessment and a liberal assessment of what your startup costs may be. XYPN has a number of different kind of startup budgets that range anywhere from, I think, $15,000 to $30,000. But what you need to do is think backwards. You need to think about what's your income currently? What do you need to make in a year and a half? What do you need to make in 2 years to make this all worth it? And then work backwards. Thinking about knowing XYPN's benchmarks, that it usually takes a month to get 1 or 1.5 clients. Depending on what your rate's going to be, how many do you need to get into the green? How many do you need to be able to be revenue positive? And begin doing that math. quite honestly, if you're not interested in doing that math, I would question what you're doing, and really do not try to start this without doing an honest assessment of your financial needs, your family needs, your own personal financial needs. We have advisors who work with advisors. Go get a financial planner and talk about this goal. One of the best things I hear, and Isabel and I both talk to all exiting members, and one of the hardest but best things we hear is, hey, we're just not ready yet. If people are going to go leave XY, that's a good reason. I'm just not ready yet. And that's okay. Sometimes it takes advisors to come into the network, realize, oh shit, I'm not ready for this. Go back at a couple of years of experience, stack some cash, and then come back and start it. I would not do this without at least a year buffer of no income, period. You don't know when we roll into a pandemic. You don't know when the industry changes or the markets change or anything like that. You do need to have a buffer. And as a financial advisor, think through that. Now, we have a number of examples of people starting on credit. We have a number of examples of people starting with investment from outside parties. There's different ways to do it. I encourage you to have your financial house in order before you do it.
And this isn't about the dollars and cents, but in addition to having that first year buffer, I would also recommend having a really strong support network, because entrepreneurship is hard. So whether there's a partner in your life, if it's friends, if it's family, if it's having a good shut off at the end of the day routine, make sure that you're taking care of yourself, because entrepreneurship is hard. It's so rewarding, as Maddy said, but very, very hard as well.
And we're built for hard things. Like, don't forget that. Like, there's a saying, we can do hard things. We are built to do hard things. And so when we say it's hard, it doesn't mean it's impossible. It means that we're being realistic about the kind of pressure. I mean, even if you have felt pressure at your jobs before, you know what that feels like. A lot is hanging on you. You've got to perform. I really commend and tip my hat to advisors that go out and start their own businesses, because doing hard things is scary. And guess what? People who do hard things are really badass and really cool and have a huge chance of success, because you got to play the game to win.
Absolutely. Yeah, so that's a lot about kind of the startup, but let's talk about how do we get clients and the niche or the niche, as Alan and Michael both say it differently, but is the hype real?
Is the hype real? Freak yes, absolutely. It totally is. And as I think about, man, if I had gone after the goal of starting my own firm or been an advisor, I would have been in your seats too. Like, hey, Fogamir, I want you as a client. But then I think about like how challenging it would be to have to do my parents' finances, because then we're talking about the stuff that's in the CFP books and I've never gotten to. I don't know about retirement planning. I don't know about that sort of stuff. I would really encourage you to get clear on who you want to work with, because you do not want to work with everyone. I promise you that. There is a whole part of the population you don't actually want to work with. So get clear on that. Remember the abundance mentality. There are so many consumers, so many clients, so many people that deserve and need good financial planning. What I encourage you to do is think about your why. Who are you trying to help? Do you want to help LGBTQ youth? Do you want to help women in transition? Do you want to help women like you? Do you want to help men like you? Do you want to help people that work at your state college? Do you want to work at people who worked at your previous employer? Think about the people who are similar to you and people who you resonate with and who you get. It's also really easy to think about your own financial house. What have you gone through that you felt like you now have an expertise? Did you buy a house recently with your spouse? Did you have to navigate that kind of challenge? Maybe you bought a house with someone who wasn't your spouse. If those are the kind of things you too have worked through, there's kind of that inherent level of confidence in yourself that you can bring to the table because you've been there. Me trying to advise my parents on what to do, I may not come off as the best expert because I haven't lived through it. And that's not to say you can't. We have a bunch of young advisors working in the retirement space. But back to the niche. If I've learned anything, I preach the niche, and I will preach the niche outside of this industry too. Any business owner I run into, anyone I talk to, it's like, well, who are you actually serving? Like, who do you actually want to serve? Because everything gets clearer. Yes, it's going to take longer. Yes, we see that. If you have a niche, it's going to take just a bit longer to ramp up. But guess what? As you start getting some internal referrals, you're going to have niche after niche after niche, great fit after great fit after great fit. And the structure of delivering services becomes so much easier because you're working with spouses who just bought homes, spouses who just bought homes, spouses who just bought homes. You're not working with spouses who just bought homes and some 85-year-olds who are retiring, plus a young newbie with $200,000 in student debt who's a dentist. It gets very hard to plan your day when you have 4 different types of financial plans, 4 different, very complicated financial needs. How easy would it be when you start thinking about, here's this narrow scope that I'm working on and I've become an expert in it. Your ability to speak confidently about it, your ability to pitch yourself to the potential client becomes much easier because you've just served 20 of them. So yes, it is hard to niche up. It's hard to not be a generalist, but get clear, paint the psychographic niche. We have a bunch of advisors saying, I want to work with creatives and people who dream big. That's not a profession. That's a type of person. And then if you're good at helping people dream big and you like life planning, go make that a niche. I really, really encourage the niche. And yeah, the hype is very real.
Yeah. And to your point, and it's not just about being able to serve the people that you really want to serve, although it is, and it's not just about the delivery, but it's the marketing as well.
So much
Because
easier.
yeah, if your niche is working with professors at this local college, they're going to tell their colleagues about you. You are going to get really familiar with their retirement plans, and so it just becomes so much easier. And it is a slow ramp up, but then you're at that sweet spot.
Such good advice, Isabel. I totally echo that sentiment. The marketing and I hear a lot of people like, oh, I got a blog. It's like, well, how many articles do we need about the difference between Roth IRA and a 401k? We don't need any more. Trust me, Google's filled with them. But how do you talk about a company going public? How do you talk about the big transition of company ownership in your small town? If you get in on those kind of things and you begin to write targeted material and you share it on LinkedIn, you share it on Facebook, and you do, your typical marketing, you begin to get in front of people. I do not read general articles. You see an article that's written directly for me, I will read the whole thing. And that's how your clients will think about it too. Oh, this person's just a generalist. What is he or she going to know about me? Oh my gosh, they wrote an article about my company going public. They may actually know a little bit about my questions. And sure enough, you come in with a deep understanding and respect for what your client has already been through because you know it.
Mm-hmm. Not only are you the expert when it comes to the financial plan, but you're the expert when it comes to financial planning in their industry or stage of life or whatever your niche is, which is just so fantastic. I mean, I did ask that question, Maddy, but I echo it as well as the hype is real. What about for someone who hates marketing and sales, but loves the planning, the coaching, providing information to clients? The marketing and sales, having to wear all those hats.
I get it. I get it. I think, I would push, if I was your manager, I'd push you on developing those skills. I would push you on developing the confidence to go out and be in front of someone. You've got to sell the financial plan in terms of the delivery of it. So it's not that hard of a bridge to make to sell your value to a client. I think you need to be able to blindfolded sell your value to a client. And that is almost a prereq. You have to truly believe in what you do. Now, how much time you spend blogging and how much time you spend making sure your website looks perfect, I get it. We have advisors around the country who are like, I don't care about my website. I got great clients. So it's not all about, oh, I'm tweeting, I'm Insta and sending out Facebook posts and stuff. You've got to think about marketing and sales as like of an internal intrinsic value that you have of yourself and your services. I don't understand. I don't know. I would encourage you, I guess, to go get some work experience and see how other people do business development. Mm-hmm. There are different modes to it, especially if you get niched. You don't have to constantly, be marketing, because with a certain number of clients, they start referring. We see referrals as being one of the most common ways advisors get clients after 1 or 2 years in the niche space. If you're a generalist, yeah, you're gonna have to beat that drum all day long that you were a financial advisor. And you're going to have to try to differentiate yourself. So I think it comes back again to that why and who you want to work with, because when you're clear on that, you should be able to speak authentically on that with any microphone in front of anyone. But I get it. Sales and marketing take up time. There's different strategies for it. Our coaches help. We've got a lot of resources around it. There's a lot of just setting and forgetting. And then there's a lot of just tinkering and seeing what works. But remember, I mean, you have to be able to talk and feel the value that you bring to a client in order to sell them.
Mm-hmm. Can you outsource marketing or sales? And what parts of the business can you outsource?
You can outsource everything, folks.
Except for compliance.
Except for compliance. You do have to wear your chief compliance officer hat. Um, and I love the Genius chart. I've mentioned it a number of times. I do want to credit JD Bruce over at Abacus is who kind of talked to Alan about that, who initially talked to me about it a long time ago. That what are you good at? What are you bad at? That kind of matrix. Thinking about repeat your question, Isabel.
What can you outsource? What parts of the business?
Yeah, I would get really clear on what you want to outsource. Things like investment management, easy to outsource, even if you love it. And what we see is kind of two spectrums when you outsource. You're either great at it and you just don't have time, or you're bad at it and you hate it. So anytime you're on either of those two seesaws, on the other side of the seesaws, think about that, because you can outsource it. And there's no shame in the game of outsourcing. We hear over and over and over, advisors need more hours in the day. Can't get you that, but we can encourage you to outsource. And I say that all the time. If you have, say, your books, do I want to spend 3 hours on a Saturday balancing my books, or do I want to pay someone $100 to do it? I'm going to probably pay someone $100 to do it, because it takes time off of my plate and gives it back to me, or free time back to me to do what else I'm good at and what I can do quickly. So there are large aspects to your business that you can outsource. I encourage you, don't just go with, blanket cookie cutter newsletters. I would really seek out someone who could coach you on how to set up something that works in perpetuity. You could hire someone who's great at business development. You could get a young staffer in there and pay them a great salary and have them go talk to every single person about what you do. But remember, this is your business. And this is your sell. And at least in the starting years, I encourage you to get yourself uncomfortable and start having those conversations with clients. But you could outsource sales, you could outsource marketing, you could outsource financial planning in a lot of ways. You could get a paraplanner to do a lot of the execution of it. But one of the best things, you can get an admin, you can get a director of getting shit done who helps move the boat forward and letting you really focus on what you're good at. And that may ebb and flow, folks. You may want to outsource initially, and then you may want to take it back. And you may want to do everything, and then eventually you may want to outsource. So outsourcing can happen before you even have clients or after you've got too many.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I see a lot of people thinking, in the beginning of stages, in the first year or two, I have to do everything. I can't afford to outsource it. I need to keep all my costs really low, which I absolutely respect. You have a budget. You're kind of looking month to month to see, am I going to grow? When am I going to get out of the red? But at the same time, I do want to make a plug for outsourcing those things that, while they might not take a lot of time, it also doesn't cost a lot to outsource. And think about the mental energy you spend on preparing for the task, and then actually doing the task, and then thinking, oh gosh, I have to do this again next month. Because that might be worth that $100 a month, not to have to constantly in the back of your mind be thinking, oh no, I have to do the books. It's going to take me time. I'm going to put it off.
Isabel, such a good point. You've really got to be critical about and honest. I don't think you can do this without being so grossly honest with yourself about what you're good at and what you're bad at. And think about it. How many times do you think about, I got to do laundry today? And then you don't do it. If I could take up the amount of minutes that I thought about doing laundry, I would have been done with every load in my house. But instead, I've sat here and thinking about, oh shit, I got to get my laundry done. If you do that more than once throughout the week, write that task down and just have it on your honest list that says like, oh, I'm having some adverse reaction to making sure my client's CRM is updated. My CRM is updated. That's okay. There's no shame in it, because remember, what you're going to do is evolve as a business owner and a planner. Where in a few months, you may not hate that so much, but right now it's too much to think about. So do begin to be honest with yourself about what you are taking more time doing than it actually takes to do the task. I love David Allen's How to Get Things Done. It's a concept I've tried to implement my whole life. Is if it's a 2-minute task, you get it out of your out of your desk. But if you take that 2-minute task and then you spend an hour worrying about it and dreading it, you are wasting so much mental energy. And mental energy is something that there's a finite limit to. And in our current world and environment, I really encourage you to be very, very protective of your energy and very, very protective of your mental strength, because you've got to be able to show up for your clients. You've got to be able to deliver what you've promised. And so however it may look, the first year may look different the second year if you've got staff or outsource or whatever, but you're at least still delivering what you've promised to your clients. And yet you've continued to be honest with yourself and your capabilities. And no one expects you to be perfect at everything. We are not expecting perfection. But a lot of folks are perfectionists who get into this realm. And then it's a hard fight to get them to understand they don't have to carry every baton across the finish line.
Yes, definitely. We are getting some questions about fees and how to charge. So talk a little bit about like what you see people, how you see people charging, and how to be successful with a fee only model.
Love it. Being successful in the fee only model, listen to the podcast. Every episode is about that. The fee only space is a very promising space, and it's something you've got to believe in, and you've got to believe that being fee only is what you want. I'm not going to say one is better than the other, or you have to do one. To be an XYPN member, we are a fee only network. We're the home of fee only network, or the home of fee only advisors. So on that front, I encourage you to listen to the podcast. When it comes to fees, I've seen all things. There are fees that range from $50 a month to thousands, and AUM and things like that. Again, you need to be honest with yourself, and you need to be honest about who you're working with. You want to be engageable, meaning you don't want to work with folks that don't make a lot of money and then you charge a whole lot. You want to think about not just your fees, but what your service model is, because those go in tandem. So if you want a $50 a month option, just think about what the service is associated with $50. Take your hourly rate and make sure that you're only doing $50 worth for that monthly engagement. And you can have tiers. You can say, okay, if I do this or this program, here's what I would get. But it has to start with what your hourly rate is. And please, please, please do not undervalue yourself. You have to remember that the advice you're giving is technical, great advice that deserves payment. And that, again, intrinsic value, your sticky notes of why need to come up so that you remember that when you talk about why you charge the way you charge, it's because you believe in the value you're going to bring to that client. I've seen it over and over and over again. Consumers save so much more money when they work with financial planner, period. Mm-hmm. It pays for themselves, or it pays for itself. Fees really do go down to what do you need to make, and where do you want to be? And I would not do this if you are not interested in tracking that sort of stuff. I look at my monthly budget on the 1st and the 15th every single month. I have my graphs of where I'm going, my net worth, all that stuff. If you're not doing that with your business, you want to think about why. Don't be scared of it. You have to know how your business is doing. That's part of having accurate books and records. It's part of being a chief financial officer of your own business. But you need to be able to be an advocate for yourself and where you want to go year after year, because it's easy to come in here and think, okay, just next month I'm going to make this much. No, you have to be thinking strategically about year 3 and year 5 and what you want to achieve there. And if you underprice yourself now, you are going to be spinning your wheels trying to figure out how to get better priced clients in the door without letting go of those lower priced folks. I think I have a little bit more of a liberal view about the spectrum of fees here. I think a lot of advisors would say never charge anything less than $200. I see it successful in all ways, but I also have gotten on the podcast really clear with advisors about what they're offering for those lower levels. And you just want to be honest. You do not want to work 4 hours for $50, right? Period.
Right.
Even if your goal is to help a bunch of people and make it accessible. That's okay. You can have an arm. You can do a barbell approach. You can charge your retirees and pre-retirees a lot, and then you can charge low amounts for other folks. And so it balances it out. There's different ways to do it. But fees, go into every single ADV that you can find on an advisor's website and look at how they charge.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and especially those that have similar niches and people that you want to be serving. And I tell that's kind of a recommendation I have for a lot of things, not just with fees, but how to market yourself. What does the website look like? Is that person blogging? Check out their website, check out their ADV, check out their social media accounts, see who has come before you, and not to copy, but to just model yourself and see what you like and what you don't like about how they're presenting themselves.
Totally. If I were you guys, I would go to 10 advisors' websites from XYPN and, bookmark them all and take notes on them all. What do they do for their fees? Do they show them, or do I have to book a consultation first? What do you like? Do they have pictures of themselves and their families, or do they have pictures of lighthouses? What do you like as a consumer? What do they talk about who they are and who they work with generally, or do they speak specifically to working with Olympians? Because if you're an Olympian and you land on Lauren Williams' website, you're going to want to work with Lauren Williams.
Absolutely.
And if you're an LGBT, ally, and you land on someone like Brian Thompson's website, you're going to want to work with Brian. And so think about who you want to be in a few years, not to be Brian Thompson or Lauren Williams, but you want to think about, how do I want to look to a client that lands on my website? How do I want to convey myself? And authenticity is the name of the game right now, folks. You do not want to be another cookie cutter advisor.
I love that. And I love looking ahead a couple of years, because as a business owner, you need to be doing that. You need to sit down. I don't know if it's monthly or quarterly, but definitely on a regular basis to kind of see what you're going to be doing in year 2, 3, 10, 15. And what do you see people struggle with when they get to those stages in year 2 and 3?
The time always comes up. You want to do everything. By year 2 and 3, you're feeling good. You've got your book of business, and now all of a sudden you're like, well, Maddy, I want to write a book. I want to start a podcast. I want to do this. I want to mentor. I want to do this. And you're almost like, by year 3, you're ready to like give a whole lot more than you've got. And it's because you made it. And trust me, Isabel and I have worked with a lot of people who have made it. I have full confidence in anyone who wants to do this to be able to get it done. I really, really do. So year 2 and 3, things start kind of breaking down a little bit. Wheels can start coming off the bus. You can start realizing processes are breaking, because what was working for your sub 25 clients isn't going to work to get you to 75 clients. I also see tech getting increased a little bit here. All of a sudden, advisors who are using Capitect, if they were heavily in investment management, they might opt for Orion at that point. Folks that were running Right Capital simulations might at that point decide, okay, I've got enough revenue, I'm going to go get e-money at this point. So we see some tech change to the higher caliber tech. And we see pricing change. We see advisors finally say, oh yeah, no more $50 an hour. We see advisors making wait lists because the capacity has been reached. This is when hiring starts coming up, and most people don't think about hiring until it's too late. And then it's like, oh my God, I don't even know what to do. And then you'll be like Alan and Michael fighting over who their first hire is. And Michael's like, just write someone for a director of getting shit done. And you may want to just hire a director of getting shit done. There's a lot of young people that want to be a director of getting shit done. But year 2 and 3 are the fun years, because you've made it. And you really, years go by fast in this world. I cannot believe it's already been 6.5 years since XY started, when we only had 31 advisors around the country. We have 1,300 plus right now. Advisors want to do this, and they're doing it really well. We are proof of success, folks. And our growth in terms of this like membership number, I think is just something beautiful to remember, that this is the space that advisors want into. And there's so much opportunity here to complement each other, to layer on different services so that everyone can get access to good financial planning.
Yeah. When Maddy started, of course, there was those 30 founding members. When I started, there was 700. And I still remember, because my first day we got to celebrate, we all gathered together and rang our little donut bell for 700. And here we are, almost double that just 2 years later. It's absolutely wild and fun, and so exciting to work with entrepreneurs, as Maddy has been talking about this past hour. But where else are people finding support as they continue on their entrepreneurship journey?
I really love financial advisors. You guys are a unique breed, and in that, some of you guys come in and you're so solo. You're like, no, I've been cranking myself. I'm going to run my business myself. And then all of a sudden you get into a community where people speak your language, and you're like, oh my God, I actually like working with people. I actually want to talk about my business. I would not try to go at this alone, in so far as like alone. Like sitting in your office alone all day. And yeah, we're all quarantined and world's a little different right now, but you need a very tight center of influence group. You've got to have your mentors, you've got to have your coaches, you've got to have your people that you lean on when shit's hard, pardon my language. But you need that group. And so you always want to think about, who are some of the leaders that I've looked up to? How do I take some of their lessons and use them every day? But then you want to think about, and this is where XY is going to come in, is having people provide an understanding ear is really, really underestimated, the power of that. Being able to sit down and be like, I just screwed up an onboarding process. Is your husband or wife going to understand that? Probably not to the degree another advisor is going to understand that. And as a solopreneur, that kind of emotional support goes really far. The empathy that you can give another advisor, understanding that things are hard, or celebrating in a genuine way when things go well, is something you don't want to miss. You don't want to just be alone in your office and like, yes, I just scored a client. You want to be able to like go out and tell your team, and your team doesn't have to actually be employed by you. So I talk about mastermind groups a lot. But mastermind groups are really, really powerful. And they're something that we've been organizing at XYPN for years. Alan Moore was part of a study group for years as he led into XYPN. Michael Kitces still meets with his study group. Alan Moore has a study group of CEOs. Now I have a personal study group that I've met with for 2.5 years. Every Monday night we meet, every Tuesday night. And we met last night just to, talk and go through our wins and losses. We have a framework that we talk through. I'm a social person, but I don't believe you have to be a social person to benefit from the power of a mastermind group. And the idea is that you need accountability partners. It's support, of course, that we give us each other as humans. That gentle connection of making eye contact and things is something we as humans need. But what you also need is folks that know your business and know your strengths and weaknesses, and know when you're feeling down, this is going to help you get up. And meeting on a recurring basis to talk about where you want to go and how you want to get there is so powerful. It is how you manifest the dreams that you have, quite honestly. I don't know about you, but I'm not totally internally self-motivated all the time. I kind of need a boss and a great team to tell me to get to work. And that there's no shame in that. But the power of having other people in a community is so underestimated. And it takes folks to join XY and get involved in the community to realize like, oh, this was the missing piece I needed. And I really, I love seeing that come around, where advisors are like, oh my gosh, I've got my 3 best friends now. And it's not that you're best friends and it's that they get you and they get what you're building and they're doing it too. And that's really powerful.
Absolutely. Yeah. And, as you kind of think about developing the business and you're really getting into what's going to happen to me in the future, these people will become your succession plans, continuity plans. What happens if you get hit by a bus? As a solopreneur, you need to have that plan in place because, whether or not clients will ask about it, which a lot will, you need to have something in place for that.
Yeah. And on that note, it takes sometimes getting involved in the XYPN community, even if you're not a member, just to come into like the VIP group or come to our conference, where a lot of you have kind of been living in a space that where you probably thought it was supportive, but like, this idea of breaking out on your own and working with young people like hasn't landed very well with other people. You've probably experienced that a time or two, even with your partner, say. But when you come into a community with XY, where our goal is a shared goal and that we're part of a movement and a mission to help advisors run great practices, you're then all of a sudden kind of in this micro community. And to me, the level of awesomeness of advisors just goes up as you get closer to membership, because once you're at the member level at XYPN, you are committed to what you're doing. And so everyone else in this network is also, and so they can meet you in a way that maybe you haven't yet experienced, which as humans feels really good, especially when there's a lot on the line, like a business.
Yeah. Talking about personality traits, and someone had a question about what makes someone successful. What do you see personality wise, habit wise? I know that, again, this is a very broad question and we could spend the whole hour talking about just this one.
I worked with lawyers before I came into this space, and I had my socks knocked off over and over and over again as I met XYPN advisors, being like, why are they so nice? Like, why are they so put together? It's like, oh, you guys are all financial planners. Okay, there's kind of a personality that goes with that. I see people who are clear on their why, who really, really feel like what I was just doing was not it. That kind of motivation, man, I so much credit to you guys, because it is scary to go out on your own. people who are clear that like we've gotten to a point in my life where I'm not going backwards. I'm only going forwards on my plan. That's kind of a shared sentiment among advisors. And you can hear it on their first calls with us that they've kind of been pushed to this. And now they're like, all right, we're doing it. If you are still kind of on the fence, take your time, write some more emails, go out to some more coffees, go work for a couple more years. Launching your firm will always be here. Mm-hmm. And also, your crappy old job will probably also be there in some form or another. You can always go back and work at wherever you want. But going out and running your own business is something that you really have to want. And you want the freedom and flexibility and the financial ownership and all of the wonderful things that come with being a business owner. You guys are so cool for doing this. But I was always really humbled and have continued to be humbled every single day I meet new members. The kind of quality human that comes into this space. This is a giving profession. There's not a lot of jerks in this space, at least in the XYPN realm. And I'm really proud of that. And I think it's a testament to the kind of people that you want to be and help. And so, you're on this call for a reason. You probably have you probably have what it takes to do it. And so now you just got to make sure, is it the right time? Do I have what I need? And remember, I ask the question on the podcast all the time, what's the best piece of advice? Just do it. You got to play it. You got to play the game. And I encourage you to do it.
Yeah. I like this taking your time approach, because I do think it is really important to make sure all the pieces are lined up. And to your point is, we host one of these calls every single month. We've got Taylor Deerdorf on coming up in December, talking about the tech tools that you need with your startup firm. So definitely that's a good one to attend. Coming to the conference, listening to the podcast, just stay in I call it the greater XYPN community. Connecting with other advisors on your commute. Well, when we had commutes, binging the podcast on your commute, taking it to the gym. I listened to it again in the pre-times when I would go to the gym. I would listen to it there, because it passes the time so quickly, and you get these nuggets of wisdom. But before you join XYPN, there is still this greater community that you can participate in, and just learn and do your research. And we talked to people and they said, I've been following you for years. And then it does take that one kind of thing. And they're like, now is finally the time. Maybe it was a pandemic, or maybe it was a failed succession plan.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. I really encourage you, and I just saw it drop in the chat, listen to 20 episodes of XYPN Radio. Just pick 20, just do it and listen to every single one of them and take notes. Get your own notebook. Says 20 podcasts and take notes. I don't usually, when Alan was hosting it, I never didn't take notes during the podcast. I learned so much, and I was in the space already. But go and listen to some success stories and think about the different components that they've talked about, and then go do some more research on them. But the best way, and what we want to keep doing, is show evidence after evidence after evidence after evidence that this is achievable for anyone who wants it. I was going to say all people, but definitely not all people, just the people that want it. And it's you guys on this call. And so, Michael Kitces has got a great podcast, but the XY1 is dedicated to showing how people achieve success in their first several years.
Mm-hmm. And going back to that question about what kind of characteristics we see people who have success in this space, is being a lifelong learner.
Great.
As you mentioned, Maddy, it's doing the research, it's talking to the people, it's taking notes. You're never not trying to learn more, to better yourself, to connect with the people who are, 2-3 years ahead of you, and seeing what made them successful. And that's probably my pro tip as you get into this space is be a lifelong learner.
Such a good piece of advice.
We probably have time for just one more, although I think we could probably talk the rest of the afternoon.
Let's do it. Let's just stay on it, though.
We could. But before we get to the last question, tell us how you liked this webinar. Let us know how we're doing. We definitely rely on surveys to tell us, are you enjoying these? Should we continue doing them? What other guests should we have an interview? So I think we just dropped that survey in the chat. But Maddy, what do you see holding advisors back, and what would you say to them?
Holding them back while they have firms, or thinking about starting?
Thinking about starting.
Imposter syndrome is a real thing. women struggle with it and men struggle with it, and all in between people struggle with it. I think that this is something that, we as a human race need to believe in the power of us as individuals. We're each unique. We're each here for a certain amount of time, and it's our one life. It's our one beautiful, unique, and wild life. And I think that if we can begin to harness a bit more confidence in who we are as a human and what we bring to the table, we all bring unique and special gifts and deserve to be seen and heard and held. And honestly, I think that the imposter syndrome of like, I'm never going to be as good as Scott Frank or Helen No or some of these awesome members that we have. It's not about being those other people. It's about being the best you. And by you thinking about what will help me be the best me, if running your own business is going to help you get there, believe in that. And that may be what's on your post-it, is that I am special and I have value and I am important. Get your confidence up. Trust me, no one is going to come around with a crown and tell you good job. You have to do it yourself. You will no longer have a boss to tell you you're doing great. You have to be able to harness that internal power. I'm big into mindfulness. I'm big into meditation. I'm big into self-help and that private space that you cultivate on your own. But the imposter syndrome will hold you down. And I challenge anyone who feels that way to bust a move and start proving yourself that you can do it.
Love that. Oh, that's such a good takeaway, such a good note to end on. Maddy, thank you for your time this afternoon. It was so good talking to you. Everyone, this is Maddy Roche. She is our Senior Director of Member Success, all the way up from the Director of Getting Shit Done. She knows what she's talking about. It's been many, many years and hundreds of conversations with members. So appreciate your time today, getting on this webinar with us. Let us know if this was the one that made you finally pull the trigger and jump on into XYPN. Otherwise, join us next month and have a safe and happy Wednesday.
Thanks, everyone. I do sure hope that when you are ready and when the time is right, you join XY. I will personally welcome you. So will Isabel. And if you are ever in person at our conferences, you can expect an awesome high five. Cheers to all of you who are doing the hard work right now, regardless of whether you're running your own business. You guys are in a really special space and really do important work. So thank you and cheers to all of you.
Thanks, everyone.